fuck? The news. We get them when we wake up every morning, grab our phone, and open up our favourite social media app, and see a bunch of headlines alongside a relevant image in our feeds, and make us think, why am I following this news outlet? Now, in my very humble opinion, it's good to see what's happening in this very lack of fatefulness, but at times fascinating world that we live in. However, recently, a lot of people have started to lose trust in the spec of reliability of their source of news, particularly in the mainstream media. And as time goes on, consumers are starting to go in more alternative directions for their sources for news and information, and ditching their traditional counterparts. But like anything, there is one hell of a train wreck amongst this that is so incomprehensible, we can't take our eyes off it. We could just ignore it, but it's too terrible not to assess the damage that has occurred right in front of us. And that seamless wreck is Pedestrian and Junky. Now, you might never have heard of them, but there's a chance you've stumbled across an article from the likes of Pedestrian and Junky through a shared link on Facebook or any other popular social media outlet. Pedestrian and Junky are both separate news outlets based in Australia that appeals to the youth, that pretty much reports on political, lifestyle, and pop culture news. They're just a couple of many in a vast, muddy, and dirty cesspool of websites that try to go for the same approach that Buzzfeed goes for by blatantly capitalizing off its format. That's what a lot of websites that cater towards youth culture does right now. Just copying the same formula as Buzzfeed, as that's what everyone is getting their information from nowadays. But for this video, I want to specifically talk about Junky and Pedestrian. These websites' purpose is to simply regurgitate other stories and recite them into their own articles that would appeal to a younger audience. And they assume that we have the attention span of a fish, with using dialect and buzzwords such as lit, fam, and other lingo that apparently I'm too old to know. And even swearing in their articles. I mean, wow, you're so edgy, aren't you, Pedestrian? And the use of abbreviations such as stop right TF now, all while accompanied by unfunny gifs and imposing emojis in their thumbnails, YouTube vlogger style. Just by looking at the front page alone, it's almost like it's their intention in the first place is to make me hurtle in a fetal position and cry of agony. The thing that bothers me about Junky, Pedestrian, and similar websites is that they think they're informative and providing insightful journalism that's cutting edge and being peculiar from other sources of news. Being a voice for the youth when really they're just hopping on board trending topics just so they can get that eye-catching clickbait headline and image from a familiar movie or TV show together in the clicks. Claiming that they're different from everyone else when it looks like they're just exploiting what's popular like celebrity gossip or nostalgia. Oh gee, isn't that what every other website is doing? I mean, it's a business strategy of theirs, and according to how many readers they get a month, it's working out well for them, I guess. Something this out of touch makes me assume that it's just operated by hack executives who clearly have no idea how young people act or behave. And like I've said earlier, it's evident with the amount of dialect that is written in these news stories, followed by unfunny gifs from popular pieces of media that just hurt my tired and exhausted eyes the more I am unfortunate enough to gaze at them. When I read this, I just have to ask myself, why would anyone in their right mind would read these atrocious articles and take them as legitimate sources for news? Whoever writes these articles must have a tight schedule to work around on. They probably have no idea what to report on, and I don't blame them. Maybe there are some hardworking people who are dedicated to their role as a journalist and maybe have some journalistic integrity, but it just astounds me the fact that that's being wasted on crap like, here's what your car's colour says who you are as a human. You know what I mean? When it comes to politics, it's obvious that they lean more towards the liberal side. Now, I couldn't care less what their political views are, but what I've got a problem with is how they execute their stories on these issues. Having this blatant ideological stance on certain issues involving diversity, but don't really dive deep into more logical prospects on the situations and issues they're bringing to attention. Making these certain topics and issues seem like it was caused by something that originally had nothing to do with it instead of having reasonable criticism, just opting to go one-sided. Like making award ceremonies all about racism and identity politics for some reason. Perpetuating their oppression onto others on this problem like it should be their issue as well. Running about why people should hate this specific thing and why that thing is a bit too problematic, based on evidence that is literally just social media posts by celebrities and other inept individuals. Usually bringing up things that are more trivial that would be a big problem to them, it really boggles my mind. You can interpret my arguments however you want, but I think what I've just said can be viewed in this Junky article right here. Australia's toxic blokiness is preserving a unique and dangerous type of homophobia. I just find this so confusing. It's like they feel the need to take two things that don't tally up with each other and try to find the most pathetic way to correlate the two. And in Junky's little mind, they think it works, but really it doesn't. What does the Australian stereotype have anything to do with homophobia? These homophobic slurs are just caused by idiots, and you can't just entitle the blame onto the Australian culture in general. A stereotype is an exaggerated term to describe a certain culture and identity. Stop taking it so seriously. You can read the article for yourself, but to me it just comes off as they're just pushing an ideology into people's throats. Another thing about these that has bothered me, and I'm sure they have pestered you guys watching this, is having these politically charged articles that mostly rely on pushing a political narrative to young readers, while having the most superficial and shallow stories such as, here's your cheat sheet for every name on Kim Kardashian's posted burn book. Lord's Aria Ward's performance was an absolute bloody triumph. Jonathan versus Steve, who is the better Stranger Things boyfriend? Or how about, Pickle Rick! Thinking they have all the effort in their dodgy little hands to go up against big social norms and be all cutting edge with its inclusive articles, but the outcome of that is just embarrassment within themselves. It's evident in the presentation and the alliteration the articles have to show, pandering to their audience like they're just dumb children. Also, one other thing I thought would be worth mentioning is their attempt at comedy.
The 26th of January is a day that we have traditionally celebrated Australia. But for some Australians it's a bit of a shitty day, because it's the day that Australia was invaded by colonists. So let's celebrate on a different day, the most Australian day of all, the 8th of May. May 8. Mate.
It's May 8!
It is honestly the most meaningless, vapid, and... hold on, give me a second. Yeah, this will do. Cower content out on the internet. It's the kind of humour that reminds me of that activewear video.
Activewear, activewear.
Buying groceries in my activewear.
Activewear, activewear.
Having coffee with my friends in my activewear.
They're just unfunny, lazily produced and rushed videos that just appeal to the lowest common denominator. And I know what you're gonna say, well you miserable old cunt, not everything has to be taken seriously, you know? Stop your whinging. I mean, true, what we find informative, insightful, and entertaining is subjective, but that doesn't mean articles like these can be excluded from all kinds of criticism. Now if you excuse me, I'm gonna leave the website now, because the more I look into it, the more it's just gonna make me angry. What the? Come on. I just want to click away, but it's not letting me. Oh my god. Oh no. Oh, I don't want to stay here. Oh no, please! Help me! For God's sake, please! Help me! No! What I can gather from the likes of Pedestrian, Junky, and those other websites is their motivation to produce a massive unchallenging, vapid, and pointless garbage to forcefully feed their audience, who have nothing better to do other than read Jonathan versus Steve, who is the better Stranger Things boyfriend. What is it with your obsession with specific things? There's really nothing much to it about these websites. Everyone has gone on about the concept and format of Buzzfeed and similar websites. It's just a hollow and meaningless and overall sad excuse for journalism. There really is no journalism integrity going into these websites. Their attempt to compete with Buzzfeed and other youth-targeted news outlets make their content predictable and sets your expectations really low. And they have no ability to discuss important topics like politics and other notable social issues, which makes them pathetic. I can't believe I've spent this long talking about a meaningless website which isn't really worth criticizing and is really not worth anyone's time. I'm gonna end the video here because I honestly cannot stand looking at this website any further. It's just making me more miserable and I'm not gonna waste any more of my time looking at any more of this so-called junk.